So in the last video that I posted, while talking about you and your guild ending the raiding period for Legion, one of the comments that I had made, and one of the comments that I have actually made on a video maybe 1 or 2 weeks ago, was the idea of going over with you guys kind of my experiences and history within Legion and my thoughts on the expansion as a whole. And then kind of my thoughts and plans for the future. So that's what we're going to do today. We're actually going to break this video up into 2 videos. Okay. The one that you're going to get today that you're watching right now is going to be, like I said, it's my history for Legion. It's going to be my thoughts on Legion, experiences that I had in the guild, both high and low. And there were a lot of both within Legion. And then I think that we will do a second video where we talk about my plans for the future as far as the guild, raiding, my main, the channel as a whole, and then maybe just set some expectations up for the future. Now, I can definitely grant you guys that for some, this may be super boring. That you may think to yourself, why the fuck would I want to hear this dude rant about what he did in Emerald Nightmare and this, that, and the other? But I think that knowing the history of my guild, it has a lot of benefits to it. The reason why is whenever you are heavily invested in someone's opinion, and this is just general life advice, if you're heavily invested or you are reading someone's opinion, you want to know their point of view. If you are reading a review on, the hot new video game, Call of Duty Black Ops 4 that comes out or whatever, or hell, BFA. BFA comes out and you're reading a review of it, not sure if you want to get back into it, and you go and read a review of someone who has never played an MMO before and is really not interested in it, it's going to make a big difference between that guy and the guy that heavily plays MMOs that can really dig into the intricacies, whether good or bad, when it comes to these things. And the same thing goes for YouTube channels and especially where I'm giving advice to you guys is I want you guys to understand the context and my point of view. And I think when you know my history and you know the content that I provide and the experiences, it will open up conversations and it will give context for what we will be doing moving forward in BFA. And the idea here is that, when you guys message me and you go, hey, I'm having this issue, this experience, this problem, I have a question. You know what I have seen, what I have done, and hopefully it will show you, like I've mentioned before when you guys email me or message me, that you're not the only one that's experienced this. Whatever problem you've seen, if you're having it within World of Warcraft, 1,000, 10,000 other guilds are having the exact same problem. So that's why I want to do this video. Plus, it's really neat to kind of look back and see, for the 2 years or whatever that Legion's been out, just how far we've come. So I started off, and I guess we'll backtrack a little bit before we even get there. I started Warlords of Draenor as a prop paladin. We needed ranged DPS, and we had extra tanks. So I switched to a ranged DPS. I switched to my hunter. We needed healers, so we had extra ranged DPS. I switched to the Holy Paladin. I really love the Holy Paladin. We did mythic content. It was really something that really piqued my interest, doing mythic content. So we ended the expansion. I think we killed 5 mythic bosses in Hellfire Citadel, and I had a blast healing them. I thought it was, there were many gripes about Draenor, Warlords of Draenor, but raiding was a hell of a lot of fun for me. But I knew going into Legion that I really wasn't looking to play another healer. You see how that turned out. So I decided on the Balanced Druid because mostly I'm trying to remember. I can't remember the guy's YouTube page. Bay. Oh God. Whatever his YouTube page is, and I feel dumb because Final Boss. That's what it is. I can't remember what it is. He had done a video on the Balanced Druid, and it looked really cool. And it is. It's a great class to play. It's super fun. And I knew I wanted something different, so I had started Legion playing the Balanced Druid. Now, when we started Legion, I had a lot of personal problems going on. I was dealing with custody issues, trying to get more custody of my son. Yeah, I had some major drama issues at work. Both personal and professional. Things that probably I'll never talk about. But just suffice to say, there were problems at work and then the custody. It really took a toll on me, and it was something that I kept quiet about, really up until now. Even to the point where we go deeper in here, and I talk to you guys about some of the more pressing issues. This is what really was the base of it. So ultimately, I wasn't able to keep up DPS wise. We started Emerald Nightmare, and I was significantly struggling when it came to DPS within Emerald Nightmare. It was a lot of different factors. It was the ridiculous artifact power grind for the beginning of the expansion. It was unlucky when it came to getting gear. I did get lucky with the best in slot legendaries right off the bat, which was really cool. But I really struggled when it came to finding the time initially to gear and level up. So it's behind the curve for DPS, and when your guild is looking at you as, this not so great guild leader, I really took a back seat in Warlords of Draenor, and I know I did, and I've talked to you guys about this, and I really wanted to step it up, only to not be able to keep up with my peers. It really crushed me, and it crushed, I think, a lot of the initial confidence in my ability to lead the guild. Just in general, and then from a rating perspective. There was a lot of grinding, there was a lot of frustration. While the expansion, I think, in the beginning was really amazing, it had a lot of things that were really cool. We all know that the grind really killed it for a lot of players, and I've mentioned this before, that we had raiders, amazing players, really cool players that because of the grind, they did not want to play the game just because of that, because of the legendary system. We've talked about this, and you guys have heard the same story from a billion different people. So I've also mentioned to you guys before the fact that at the start of the raiding session, once Legion raids opened up, I had 2 officers. I had one officer who had been in the guild and is still in the guild, who had been in the guild longer than I have. And I have been in the guild 11 years now, over 11 years, 11 and a half years. And this guy had been in maybe 12 and a half, 13 years by now. And he was having his own personal issues, major personal issues. And he also had major DPS issues. He played a warrior, and he there's so many things I want to say about this guy. He played a DPS warrior, and I can't remember which spec he wanted to play, but he did not want to play the spec that was significantly higher in DPS. I think he wanted to play Fury Warrior, but Arms was just ridiculously high at the time. I might have them mixed up. But he wanted to play the lower DPS because that's what he enjoyed. That was the gameplay he enjoyed. And then the problem was that he had this mentality because of his personal issues, and because of his, I don't want to say attitude, but his mentality, where he would log in for the raid, he would raid, he would not help out within the guild in the raid or outside of raiding, and then he would just simply log off once we were done with the raid. And his mentality was, keep quiet, keep it all bottled up, don't bother anybody. And it really took a toll on me as the guild leader. It took a toll on him as a player, as a raider, as just a general officer. And it didn't work out. So, and I've mentioned this before. The other officer and I definitely spoke about this first guy many times, and we decided that he wasn't working out. So I demoted this gentleman. I said, hey, I want you to raid, but you're not pulling DPS. You're not helping. You got to fix this crap. We can't bring you into the guild. We're struggling as is. We want to do good, and you're bringing your detriment. And I hated doing it. And ultimately, that was the end of raiding for him. I think he does LFR, but that's it. He doesn't talk to anybody in the guild, and it's tragic. It sucks. It's sad. It's for me personally, it really sucks. I've mentioned to you guys many times about the thing that's important to me when it comes to World of Warcraft and gaming in general is the friendships. I don't care what game we play. I don't care if we played, Elder Scrolls Online or Knights of the Old Republic or, whatever. I don't care what game we play as long as my friends are there to play with me. Now, the second officer, we've talked about him, and I actually have a pretty in-depth and very brutally honest video about him, but he started very strong. He was very helpful, but ultimately, he enjoyed the drama, and he pitted the guild against itself. So, we're raiding Emerald Nightmare. We are doing heroic content. And one of my 2 tanks comes to me and says, hey, I'm not able to raid. I have a change in job, and I need to step out of the raid, step down from raiding for a while. So I decided that I would switch to playing a bear tank. At this time I've mentioned it in the other video. I had a lot of pressure from my singular officer, which is a huge mistake. I've talked about this. You want to have at least 2 officers for a lot of different reasons. But the singular officer and I, he pressured me a lot. Get on, grind. I don't care, what you have going on in your personal life or, work related. I don't care about time with your kid. You need to get in and handle business. And ultimately, it really killed a lot of people. Like, he pressured a lot of people into, grinding, guilt tripping people. And a lot of people were pushed away by that. But ultimately, though, and I think this is where I really had issues, is while he was definitely, I think in the end, I woke up and realized how awful he was for the guild. We were killing bosses, and we were killing mythic bosses, and the guild was getting shit done. And we ended Emerald Nightmare 5 out of 11 mythic. The roster boss killed us. That really was the biggest one. We had some issues where you could see that chunks of the group were busting their ass. Specific people were really killing themselves. And I've talked about this before as well. A lot of this stuff I've already talked about. But where we've had, some people who were literally like throwing relationships away to bust their ass to grind, that were treated like shit. And then you had other people that didn't do anything. They barely logged in. And we just struggled to kill things. And I think if we could have found a happy medium, it probably would have been better for the guild. But ultimately, we cut a lot of people. Some people stepped down, and some people just left in general. So we went into Trial of Valor, and we did good. We did fine. I think that Trial of Valor, it did fix a lot of the issues with the artifact grind. I think that's when they introduced some of the big catch-up mechanics. We did heroic content. I think that Trial of Valor was definitely a lot harder than people thought it was going to be. I don't think people were expecting for especially Helya to be just mechanically, just a lot of shit going on all throughout the fight. Fun fight, but just a lot of crap going on. And this is where I really started to see some of the cracks in this, again, this singular, which was a bad idea, officer, where I made especially close friendship with, we had recruited a group of players, which 2 of them ended up being the officers that helped me out today. But one of their friends, who was very, very outspoken, kind of frustrating and kind of annoying, but and I mean that in a nice way. I'm not trying to be mean, because he and I think I like the guy, I like the kid. I think he was very open and honest, and he and I spoke a lot. And this is where I started to see cracks within the leadership, where we were getting shit done, but it probably wasn't the best way that we needed to get done. There was a lot of drama, there was a lot of issues, etc. And this is kind of the beginning of the end of this singular officer being around. So we went into Nighthold and we cleared normal. Again, the roster boss killed a lot of players. Really our drive to raid, because people weren't logging on. People weren't doing mythic pluses. People weren't trying on their own. They would log in expecting to raid, and it really drained the guild. And there was a big uproar from this officer about just not trying to fix the problem, but to get rid of people, and you need to cuss people out, and you need to not take shit. And this is where I really drew the line. I said, look, it's my guild. Do some of them need to be pulled aside? Yeah, but there's an approach, and it's not the way that this guy was saying that these raiders needed to be approached and dealt with was not something I was okay with. Because ultimately, my goal within Legion was to foster a very strong community within the guild. And it wasn't happening with him by my side. So we parted ways. And again, if you guys want the full video, I'll put the link in the description so you guys can check it out. It's enlightening, I think. It was enlightening for me to record that. So we cleared Nighthold on Heroic, and I promoted 2 of the guys that were from this group of 5 or 6 people as officers. And I was leery about doing it, and I mentioned it before in that video that I was scared to do it because I didn't know these guys. These weirdos that they're just different. Everything seemed to work out. Obviously I've talked about them before. But we cleared Nighthold on Heroic. And this is where I think the guild started to come together a little bit more. Things were a little bit easier as far as gearing. We were in Nighthold. Nighthold was out for a good chunk of time. So we got into our groove during Nighthold. I think that the resolution of the leadership issue helped out a lot, where I really felt that the 2 new officers had backed me up a lot. They were getting things done when I wasn't around. I felt, I don't know the way to describe it, but like someone had my back, I think is the best way to put it. And it was nice. It was really nice to see something like that. Now, I was approached while we were doing Heroic content. I do believe it was Heroic content. I don't know if we were on farm status with Gul'dan or not. I think we were. But he said, hey, I would like to tank. Do you mind switching? Sure, why not? I figured I'd make him happy. Go ahead and do it. And really, things had stabilized. Everything was good. We went into Tomb of Sargeras. I switched to the mage. Again, we were in a really good groove. But this is where we started to have issues with healing. I don't know. I don't remember why. Maybe someone left. Yes. Now that I'm thinking about it while recording this, someone left. Someone left the guild, and we had issues with healing. And it was either the fact that we didn't have enough, or the ones that we had that we recruited simply were not skilled enough. So I happened to gear a paladin to raid. We recruited a paladin. So then I switched to a restoration shaman. I will say, as far as healers in Legion go, my personal take on the resto shaman, they're amazing. They're very fun. They have a lot going on. I really enjoyed the toolkit for the shaman. I think it's one of the best toolkits that you have around as far as healing goes. You can do everything: tank healing, raid healing, etc. It's a great class to play. I don't know. There was something about it aesthetically that I just did not like. So I alternated between the shaman and mage as we brought in and then lost healers. And, as we noticed, okay, we're having healing issues because this healer that we've recruited really isn't getting the job done. We cleared Heroic TOS. We were doing Mythic Goroth at the time, and I was approached by a group of players who said, hey, we have 5 or 6 people, we would be interested in not necessarily merging, but we want to join your guild. So we raided with them. We again, we were in a groove. We had already killed Mythic Goroth at this point, and we worked our way to Demonic Inquisition. We got really close, but their expectations of changing our raid times did not gel with the raiders that were in my guild. My raiders said, we're not changing raid days, we're not changing raid times. They can suck it up and change to accommodate us, or they can move on. And that's what they did. And, truthfully, I was a little frustrated by it. I was a little disappointed because, the roster beast was the biggest issue and source of contention, I think, within this expansion. Just because of how easy it is to swap around in a guild, there's really no reason to stick around if there's trouble. If you can find a guild that will take you that's doing slightly better, there's no reason. And that's something that really disappoints me that I wish Blizzard would address. So it didn't work out. They left. I don't think that they're together anymore. I really didn't keep up with them, but that was a chance that we had. And I think ultimately, as I think I've said ultimately a ton in this video already, but ultimately, I think it was for the best. They were a good group of players, probably a little bit. Their average skill level was, I think, a little bit higher than our average player's skill level. But they were weird. They were weird in a weird way. So we moved into Antorus. I was still playing the Resto Shaman. And then a former officer back from Warlords of Draenor, he approached me. He said, hey, me and my girlfriend, I've just got her into World of Warcraft. She loves it just as much as I do. We would like to join you guys again, if that's cool. And I switched to the Shadow Priest. My idea was, in case we needed a healer, I would have one available, but I wanted to DPS. And you guys, I think, saw how that worked out. Which is ultimately, I think I ended with us killing Heroic and Argus as a holy priest. And I've had many videos up of me healing. So I switched between the two as needed. At the end of the expansion, we did recruit a couple of new players. We have a really cool Resto Shaman, plus the second Resto Shaman, who now she's, I think, maybe playing a Paladin, the former officer's girlfriend. We have a couple of new DPSers that are lined up to join us for BFA. We have some people that I think are joining us from early Warlords of Draenor, some really good players. So things are shaping up. I think as the expansion went on and Blizzard fixed the grind issue, they fixed the legendary issue. I think that they waited too long to do these things, but it really helped. And I think once we got our groove as far as just getting raids done, I think things started to come together. So ultimately, while I don't know that me yapping about my guild's history for 20 some minutes really accounts for much, I think ultimately that this expansion was pretty damn good. A lot of content, very few points of kind of nothing to do content, being non-existent. Some of it being a little questionable as far as it really took you guys that long to do that or this, but ultimately, damn it, I can't help myself at this point. I think it was pretty damn good expansion. I think we did well. We killed, like I said, 5 out of 11 in Emerald Nightmare on Mythic. We cleared Heroic TOV. We cleared, almost 2 Mythic bosses in Tomb of Sargeras. One on our own. And in Antorus, we have that easily on farm for Heroic. So pretty good, I think, overall, as far as our progress. Would have liked for it to have been better. I think a lot of our players would have liked for it to have been better. But I want to say that when we talk about this again tomorrow, there are some certain things that I'm going to adjust and change moving into BFA. So hopefully this opens up the floor for discussion from you guys. Hopefully it gives you a little bit of context about me and my guild. And yes, some of the problems that we have, because my guild isn't perfect. I'm not perfect as a guild leader, as a raider, as a raid leader, all these things. I'm not perfect, but hopefully it will give you guys a little bit of context so that you can ask and think about some of the questions and comments and criticisms that are being brought up. And that if you want to message me, totally cool. I love doing it. But hopefully you like what I'm saying here. If you do, you guys know what to do. If you don't, let me know why. Until next time, guys, I'll see ya.